husband is really nothing. It is all about whose will is prevalent, is dominant, hers or Allah's. Who ultimately made her reality? Allah. وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ means what? You will not until Allah so wills. You will not until Allah so wills. وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. That means what? It means that she would have never been able to reality unless Allah willed it, unless Allah wanted it, unless Allah created that very reality. Because that very reality is not her own creation. Do you know that actions are created just like substance is created? Action is created. And that is proven by physics, by the way. Because energy and substance are interchangeable. So as much as substance is created, action is created as well. So that very action of the atom is created by Allah. And she was only a tool to test it. And Allah said that in the Quran too. وَجَعَلْنَا بَعْضَكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ فِتْنَةً أَتَصْبِرُوا. And we made you a trial for one another. Will you show perseverance? Will you then show perseverance? Will you show patience and perseverance? A trial for one another. So basically your wife now, or husband, is only a trial. She would vanish in your perception. Treat or he. So treat him like a glass board. And why do I say glass board? Because a glass board exists. You know, vanishment of existence is a very corrupt path. That is finite wujud. When you believe that nothing exists but Allah. But at the end of the day, there is something here that you're pinching, right? So if you believe that nothing exists but Allah, but there's got to be something here that you can touch and pinch, then that will lead you to believing that this is Allah that you're pinching. So that is a creep of disbelief, complete disbelief, takes you completely out of Islam. But فناء الشهود المشاهدة, vanishment in your perception, it will be like you are acting as if the people in front of you are glass boards. You can touch the glass board, it exists. But the glass board does not prevent you from seeing beyond it, past it. What is behind, the yard of your wife is a test sent to your way by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah is not watching you. Your wife is watching you too, or your husband is watching you. But who cares? What power does she or he have? There is another one watching you, and that is what slips, from our minds in the heat of that moment. That you're in the bedroom, she's yelling. There is a third watcher here. It is not only between you and her, but there is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is watching both of you. And there is Allah that made her yell and created the reality in the first place to test you, and now He's recording your reaction. And if you think this way, you will be able to survive all of those tests. Because instead of this being, again she's back to yelling, and then you get angry, and then you start to react, you'll say, well, it's my first test of the day, let me do a good job. And then, maybe stand and kiss her forehead or something, and say, I'm sorry if I made any mistake. I'm willing to repent, and so on. You will diffuse the tension. You know, just if you act this way, you will transcend all of those little bickering difficulties that you encounter, whether you are the wife or the husband. You know, just in the other party act as if they don't exist. So basically, first keep in mind that your partner, your opponent, your debater, your classmate has a mind like you do. In other words, open your mind when you are dialoguing with them to benefit from wisdom that they may impart to you. Even if they are very bad, they can be worse than the shaitan who said this, who told the right of the truth even once. And then make sure that you treat that person as if they were a tool in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by which He is testing you. He, Azza wa Jal, is testing you. And in that case, you will win both ways. You will benefit from the wisdom they impart or they convey to you, and you will not be drawn into a conflict because of their transgression or because of their, errors or mistakes. And that is easy to say, hard to do. So I'm trying to repeat this so that I can benefit from it, because it is not about saying it, it's about doing it. And it is not about doing it at your leisure. It's about doing it when things are tough, when things are hot, about remembering and doing, acting. So we all should remind ourselves of that so that we get to pass, on the real test, not the pseudo test or the so-so test, just the real tests. So I don't know that. It applies also to any fighting with anyone or any dialogue with anyone, not just your wife, classmate, co-worker, neighbor, masjid mate, anyone. Any questions?
In regard to the concept of thinking that every event or the hardships that come your way in the daily life, they are coming from the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And just to put that narrow down a little further and saying that, if you are constantly getting a hardship from one source, in your example it was wife, you can take that example. Taking that example of wife and saying that, constantly getting the hardship from it, and then realizing that, okay, this is just a source, but just a way, but the source is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is testing you. How far, or where do you draw that line, saying that, okay, at this point, I have to take a step towards, can't take it any further, things like that. Or what actions can I take to, an individual should take to evaluate which step would that be?
Okay, so to repeat, because maybe the sisters will not hear this, if you're constantly getting difficulties from one direction, like let's say, take for an example, the wife and the husband, the spouse in general, when do you say enough is enough? You do recognize that the source of this is Allah, but when do you say enough is enough? You say enough is enough when you have exhausted all efforts to fix yourself first, and then to exhort her and to, or him, advise them, second, and thirdly, if you exhaust the whole, like you fix your relationship with Allah, because if you fix your relationship with Allah, your relationship with His creation will be fixed. Because they are tools in His hand. And so you fix your relationship with Allah, and then you exhaust your effort in advising him or her, your spouse. And once that is exhausted as well, then it is not automatic that you will separate. You will have to pause after that and say to yourself, where is the worst of the two evils, or the lesser of the two evils, to separate or to stay? If you have kids together, for instance, and if you separate, you may not be able to afford to marry again, or you'll have financial consequences, or she will have difficulties to just walk out of a hot room because it is hot. It's never smart unless you're walking out to a cooler temperature. If you walk out from a hot room to a hotter room, that is not smart. So Imam Taymiyyah, Allah have mercy on him, used to say that the wise man is not the one who sorts out good from evil, because everybody can do it. It's the one who sorts out the better of the two goods and the worst of the two evils. Because life is about a balancing act. And that balancing act is rarely an act of balancing between evil and good. Extremely rarely. Life is a lot more complex than this. In fact, there is no absolute blessing that is absolute in every regard, aside from Iman. And that's it. Iman. And aside from Iman, there is nothing that's an absolute blessing. Wealth could be a blessing. Could be opposite. Even health. Anything. So Iman only. Life is always a lot more complex than being a balance or a choice between good and evil. So first, make sure that you have done everything possible to fix your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to fix yourself as a husband as well. Be a beautiful, good husband. Then move on to her. Because first you do your part. You see, Bukhari reported from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and the Prophet was talking about the rulers, the unjust rulers. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said to him, so what should we do when that happens? He said, تؤدوا الذي عليكم أدوا الذي عليكم وسألوا الله الذي لكم. Do that which is upon you, do your part, which is upon you, and ask Allah for that which is yours. Seek from Allah that which is yours. In other words, in any conflict between two people or two entities, if you are one of the two entities, make sure first that you have done your part. And you have exhausted, your effort in improving, perfecting your performance as a spouse or a business partner or a classmate or co-worker. before you ask for your rights.
We know that in this kind of equation, Shaitan is part of it. So what are the tools that we can use and how we can control ourselves, especially the first step?
Like in cases of conflict?
Yeah.
Well, the tools that you use, in the case of conflict itself is to control your anger. So the prophetic advice if you're sitting right now, you go make a wudu to put off the heat of the shaitan, but that is at the heat of the moment. However, there is always a long-term solution and a short-term solution. And that is the short-term solution. It does not mean that you have to ignore the long-term solution. The long-term solution is what we taught in over 23 years. The long-term solution, it is just exactly like when people say, how can I have khushu' in the prayer? You can do this and this and that. Keep in mind, if Allah is not at the center of your attention outside of the prayer, there is no switch, like an on and off switch. You turn it on, and then all of a sudden, the akhirah is your major concern, and Allah is at the center of your attention. But where was Allah in relation to your focus, your concentration, your attention, your interest, your keenness, outside of the prayer, at the periphery? So how do you think that magically, once you say Allahu Akbar, everything will be different? If throughout the day, He was not part of your conscience, He was not a concern for you. His deen is not a concern for you. You are busy making money, and you are busy thinking about your various roles in life as a husband or a money maker or this or that. So when you expect the prayer to just be a magical thing that will make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all of a sudden at the center of your attention. The same applies to this case. It is an ongoing process. It is an ongoing process of I find that one of the things that are extremely helpful is to understand the significance of the dunya. The ayah in Surah Al-Hadid, the end of Surah, the last page of Surah Al-Hadid, أَلَمَّا أَنَّ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا لَعِبٌ وَلَهْوٌ وَزِينَةٌ وَتَفَاخُرٌ بِالْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ كَمَثَلِ الْجَنَّةِ كَمَثَلِ غَيْثٍ أَعْجَبَ الْكُفَّارَ نَبَاتُهُ ثُمَّ يَهِيجُ كُفَّارًا مُصْفَرًّا ثم يكون حطاما وفي الآخرة عذاب شديد ومغفرة من الله ورضوان وما الحياة الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور. اعلموا أن الحياة الدنيا. No, realize that the life of this world is about play and amusement and mutual boasting between you and seeking of abundance in offspring, children, and wealth. The likeness of this life, the likeness of which is like a rain. The vegetation therewith, the vegetation that comes after the rain falls, is pleasing to the farmers, looks pleasing to the farmers. Then it dries out, then it crumbles away. It dries out until you see it yellow, turn yellow, and then it crumbles away, the vegetations. And in the hereafter, there is a great torment, عذاب شديد ومغفرة من الله, forgiveness from Allah, ridwan, pleasure. وما الحياة الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور, and the life of this world is nothing but a deceiving enjoyment. So if you look at this life and being in New Jersey, you still have the 4 seasons. And you look at the leaves of the trees and how they are, in the spring pleasant and green and nice and so on, and then they start to dry out, and then they become yellower, and then they fall off the trees, and then they crumble away, and then they're thrown in the trash. That is you. That is the very you. Because when you, in fact, it is even physical. Because when you're born, you have so much more water in your body, you dry out. You see, we have someone who's more than 90 here. Okay, you would have seen a lot of wrinkles. They dry out. They physically dry out. And this is not abstract and metaphoric or anything. Because you have 75% of your body weight in water when you're born. And then it goes down to 55%. You lost a lot. 20% of the water in your body. So you dried up. And then you crumble away, and then you become dust. And then no one knows when you will crumble away. Because you could live to make it to the 60s, or your term may end way before that. That recognition, if it settles in one's heart, if it truly settles in one's heart, and one truly reminds, you see, when the Prophet said, frequently remember the interrupter of all enjoyments, death. That is your treatment. That is your cure. To recognize the significance of this life, and that you will crumble away sooner or later. That puts all things in perspective. And so that is the groundwork. So that when at the end, in the heat of the moment, you will be able to act upon the prophetic advice. But if you have not done enough of the groundwork, you can bring someone from the street and tell him, well, the Prophet said such and such, and then you think, okay, I'll do it, and then that doesn't work this way. So we have to lay down the groundwork first, and it really should be an effort. Why don't you all take yourselves in the morning and go to the cemetery, the Muslim cemetery, and remind yourself of death? Well, didn't the Prophet, isn't that recommended? إني كنت نهيتكم عن زيارة القبور ألا فزوروها فإنها تذكر الآخرة. I had previously forbidden you from visiting the graves. Now I recommend for you to visit them because they remind you of the hereafter. So why are you not doing this, by the way? When have you visited the graves? To remind yourself of the hereafter. Do you not need it? Well, you do need it. So that is the backbone of the matter. That is the backbone of the matter. And then it's not how much knowledge you have afterwards. Because that is the recognition of the ultimate reality, the only certainty that in your life is death. So if one is aware of this, one will be able to do much with little knowledge. And if one is not aware of this, so we have a contracted awareness in depth and in width. So we remember this sometimes, but it's not all the time. And when we remember it sometimes, our contracted awareness prevents us from letting it truly sink in. And then when see Muhammad ibn al-Mukaddar built a house, and then he looked at it and he said, I would have really rejoiced in having you if I were to live in you permanently. But I can't get myself to rejoice, like to excessively. It doesn't mean that we as Muslims don't have fun. So if I do my wrong, saying the bounty of Allah and His mercy, let them rejoice. It's better than what they collect and hoard. So we are not depressed people. We shouldn't be. But it means that we never have excessive joy because we have this in the back of our mind all the time, that you're not here forever. You're going to leave this. And that's what the thing with respect to it.
Shaykh, you have started the speech with the philosophy. And I wanted to ask you this question, which I'm a little bit afraid to ask this Islam. What does the Islamic perspective of the philosophy is? Because in the early scholars, they always went neck to neck about this philosophy thing. I mean, Imam Ghazali and then Imam Hatem, they came in through and through all this complete ideology and all those things. And then scholars, even in our time, they put up a boundary line, or they draw a line that, okay, being a Muslim, there's a limit for our philosophy to understand. So what is the Islamic perspective for a normal being, like him and people like me? How much we should understand the Islamic philosophy or the philosophy in general? Or how much we're supposed to learn about this? Because to some extent, what I understand, maybe you can prove it otherwise, that philosophy does lead you to astray, to some extent. Otherwise, you have different perspective. So that's the first question, but next question, inshallah, maybe we have some time. So,
I would answer by the very hadith that I mentioned. إني كنت نهيتكم عن زيارة القبور ألا فزوروها. I forbade you from visiting the graves. Now I recommend for you to visit them. Now visit them. He said now visit them. It means recommended, not recommended. Eventually it will be mustahab and not obligatory. But if you translate it, now visit them. So why is this? Why forbid them and then order them?
Because initially they didn't have the hikmah to know that how to visit the grave and the means, the lands.
You're right. It's not discernment to visit the graves, but not hold any mystical, creeds about the graves and the power of the people in the graves and so on and so forth. So Allah, the Prophet wanted to have them completely weaned off of shirk and then reinstate the visiting of the graves. Which means what? It means that it is the wise practice. That's interesting. It's the wise practice of the wise doctor to treat the thing by its opposite. Treat the thing by its opposite. Therefore, Imam Ghazali, and thereafter Imam Taymiyyah, thereafter by a couple hundred years, 200 years, they were sort of waged a campaign against philosophy. Although Imam Ghazali and Imam Taymiyyah themselves come from a different background, ideological background within Islam, but they both waged a campaign against philosophy. That is because people have really deviated and sort of neglected the Quran and Sunnah for Greek logic, Greek philosophy, Greek thought. And they wanted to sort of shake the people and tell them, no, this is, it's haram, it's a musibah, it's a disaster.